Few topics generate as much beginner magician debate as the use and potential overuse of banishing. But what if that particular debate is too far downstream to be particularly useful to people, and many of the main benefits of banishing have been left on the table? Well, in this video I'm going to show you one essential outcome of banishing that is often overlooked and, if anything, becomes more powerful and more useful the further you get from the magic circle. The debate around protection and exercising and always operating in a circle has been running for about 150 years and kind of especially the last 20 or 30. And you can understand it. The traditional approach that we get from the grimoires is quite Christian, and it relies on this being a fallen or impure world, so that you say, I exorcise the creature of salt. As in you're removing bad spirits from something because you're operating in a cosmovision that is already a fallen Christian or Catholic world. So there's certainly validity in critiquing the off-the-shelf or inherited form of banishing. It, however, does not follow that you can, with the best will in the world, dispense with it. I mean, you can mess about, you can fuck around and find out. There does need to be not so much a middle way, but an updating in light of new understandings of psychology, new understandings of frontier science, and so on. And one of the metaphors I like to use is the microbiome, because we've just had, this is the problem with materialism and allopathy, we've just gone through 100 years where all bugs are bad, and so you will have TV ads that are talking about killing 99.9% of germs, whatever that is, on a surface. And what's emerging in the last few years of nutritional science is people who leave dishwashing residue on their plates, maybe because they don't rinse them well enough before they hang them out to dry, have a much lower microbiome. And that makes sense because they're actually eating food that has antimicrobial agents put through it by default. So it's not always the case that the cleanest is the best. And this is expressed or found in magic through coming to an understanding and a rediscovery of the role of place spirits. One of the things that I teach in the Rune Soup Premium membership, link to join down below, is the centrality and the necessity of place spirits. So if you think about the classic and much debated, for good reason, lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, you essentially show up somewhere and disinfect. That's the idea, and it's somehow supposed to also summon, whilst what you're actually doing is banishing. That's the classic archetypal debate ceremony. In light of the resurgence of a more animist mode and a more complementary relational mode and an interest in right relation, there has been a return to this notion of asking permission of spirits of place, at the very least acknowledging them and inviting them into ceremony, rather than immediately banishing. And I would put it to you in a similar way that the microbiome is healthy the more complex it is you are more protected in a situation when you are operating with the approval of place spirits than having elbowed them out of the way and having a bash at whatever summoning you wanted to do next. So I want you to have a think about how that microbial metaphor might apply in your own regular ceremonial space. Are you doing, the Aboriginal English for it is acknowledgement of country, but are you acknowledging place spirits before ceremonies, particularly ones where you're inviting in other spirits? How does that feel to you? And do some of your own testing around what the requirements, you'd be surprised once you start talking to them, what the requirements of the place spirits in your area are and what you can do for them. And now I want you to think about what banishing actually does. So if we're not going for a disinfectant model, banishing nevertheless does something. And what does it do? And it essentially makes room. Okay, so in its most benign expression, what you are doing is rearranging the beings in your local place-time so that there is room for something else. Now, If you listen to basically any podcasts at all, you will have onboarded a whole bunch of bro science. And I heard something, I can't remember where, it might have been Chris Williamson, probably, to do with Jerry Seinfeld's approach to writing comedy. And what he does every day is he will lock himself away in a room with a notepad and a pencil, no phone, no TV, no nothing, for an hour. And he doesn't have to write comedy in that hour, but he can't do anything else. And he calls that focusing, which it is. But I put it to you, as a magician, it's also banishing. Banishing can be the same thing as focusing when you have an animist theory of mind, because what are you doing? You are making room for the arrival of the sacred. You are making sure that the priority event or process that is happening at that time is the inward turn, is the turn to your hidden kingdom, to the imaginal realm, to where, in the case of Jerry Seinfeld, the inspiration, whatever that is, for comedy comes from. Now think about banishing before a ceremony then. Are you focusing? Because that's the outcome. What you are doing is reprioritizing and reshifting what's going on so there is room for a new thing. The great Jungian analyst James Hollis says, create space to invite possibility. And we see this borne out in magic anywhere around the world. So my shamanic healing teacher, Alberto Villoldo, his teacher would say, open sacred space and get out of the way. Now, if you have an animist theory of mind where inside, well, you're in your psyche and the psyche is composed of, or the imaginal is composed of thought beings that require your attending, how is that, like literally write it out on a piece of paper, how is that different to Seinfeldian focusing? And there are cases where banishing is different, of course, but there are also cases where it's not. And this is one of the overlooked opportunities to reinvigorate your banishing performance, because making room for the sacred is usually often enough. One of the things we learned, speaking of Alberto Villoldo, in the training is create the conditions for health and disease goes away. So the role of the shaman is to create the conditions for health. The disease will go away when that happens. That's banishing to focus. Now, would I bring a comedy sketchpad and a pencil to an exorcism? Probably not. There are certainly cases where banishing is banishing, but I invite you at this point to banish any resistance to the idea that banishing is the same thing as focusing. Sometimes, because if you invite that possibility, you are inviting some potential very big changes and very big opportunities for transformation. And now you should watch this video next to check out more life lessons from 3 decades of doing magic.